Newsflash. You're probably doing truth tables wrong. Stop doing this the wrong way. Instead, do it the right way. Let's see why, and let's see how. Okay, let's play with truth tables. And I mean really play with truth tables. We're not just going to do truth tables, but we're going to play with them. And we're going to play with them on Netica. What is a truth table anyway? Let's read a bit of wiki. A truth table is a mathematical table used in logic, specifically in connection with Boolean algebra, Boolean functions, and propositional calculus, which sets out the functional values of logical expressions on each of their functional arguments, that is, for each combination of values taken by their logical variables. In particular, truth values, or truth tables rather, can be used to show whether a propositional expression is true for all legitimate input values, that is, logically valid. Well then, let's have a look here. And we're going to have a look at conjunctions and disjunctions. All right, so we've got two Boolean variables here, P and Q, and they're either true or false. And we're going to define the truth table for P and Q. You've seen this funny little upside down V, which is typically used for P and Q. Now, if we were to compile this right now, well, I can put this true or false, nothing happens. Put this true or false, nothing happens. Put this true or false, nothing happens, right? Why? Well, that's because we haven't defined. So we're playing, but we're not getting many or much results here. So let's do something. Let's add a link. Let's go from here to here, and let's add another link from here to here. Okay. So we're telling Netica, all right, well, I'm going to define P and Q in terms of this P and Q over here. So that means that we need to go and define the truth table. How do we do that? Well, we go here, we click on this, and we go View, Edit, Brain. View, Edit, Brain. And now we tell Netica, well, it's not going to be just probability. This is a deterministic function. Okay? No ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is a determinist function. It's no chance. I'm going to say it's deterministic, damn it. Okay. Now, this is how we define and. If P is true and Q is true, well then, I'll click here on and this is true. And if P is true and Q is false, well then it's going to be false. And if false or true, well then it's false. And both false, well then it had better be false. There, done. And now we can just apply. There. And now we can just close. And now we do what? Well, we have to compile. So we go over here and we say, compile the net. Boom. You probably heard a little ding there. Very good. Okay, let's start playing. So I said that P and Q is true if and only if when P is true and Q is true. Well, let's see. I'll set P true. Ah, okay. Oh, well, this is maybe true, maybe false. Why? Because it depends on what happens over here. And we'll say, okay, well, this is true. Ah, and there we go. P and Q is indeed true. Very well, then. If instead I had set this to false, we would have, exactly that. We would have this to be false. Let's retract all these findings here. So I'll go here. Notice, by the way, that, right, we don't know. As far as Netica is concerned, this is either true or false, half-half, and this either true or false. So what that means in view of that is that it's more likely to be false than true because it's false in 3 out of 4 cases. So if I were to tell Netica, well, as a matter of fact, I happen to know that P and Q is true. Oh, well, if I said this is true, then it concludes rightly. The only way that can be the case is that if P is true and Q is true. Had I said otherwise, had I said, well, P and Q is false, well, then it leaves open the possibility that P might be true or false, but apparently more likely false. And here, that Q could be either Q or false, but more likely false. So, given that this is false, if I set one of these to true, what will happen to the other one? Let us suppose that I set this to true. Well, then, automatically, this must be false. Because if this is false and this is true, the only reason that this can be false is that if this is false. Very well. So that's what I mean by playing around with truth tables with Netica. Right? You can do a truth table on paper, but right, if you do it on paper, right, the paper is just going to stare back at you and it's not going to say anything, really. In fact, let me show you something. Let me show you how stern Netica can be. Suppose I say this. Well, I say that P is false and that Q is false. And now, suppose I say, I'm going to try to assert that P and Q is true. Oh, and Netica says, no, can't enter a finding for node and because the new finding true contradicts the state false calculated from the parent nodes of this node, namely P and Q. So it says, no dice, no can do, right? And that's what I mean by playing with Netica and truth tables, right? Your paper, you can do a truth table in your paper, but if you happen to make an inconsistent claim, your paper will not complain. This will complain. Okay, so let's retract the finding and let's do another one. I said conjunction and disjunction. Well, what is a disjunction? Well, that's or. So let's just add. I'll say, okay, add a new node and it's going to be a Boolean node. All right, and this is going to be, what are we going to make it? So we're going to say, that it's going to be P or Q. Okay, it's called node B, but this is what the proposition is going to be. Okay, I apply, I go here, and now I go here. Now, I need to define this. I need to tell Netica, okay, well, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to define new in terms of P and in terms of Q. The idea is that P and Q feed some value into your little brain, and then you can compute. And I said, well, what? You haven't filled me out yet. Oh, okay. Well, let me edit your brain, and let me just say a few things. First, it's not a chance node. It is deterministic. Okay, so P or Q. Well, when is P or Q true? If P is true and Q is true, well, then this had better be true. If P is true and Q false, that's still true. Or the other way around, that is still true. But if false and false, well, then the only time that P or Q is false is when both are false. Now we can apply, and now we can close. Okay, let's play. I compile, and notice something interesting. Notice, and I'll just put this here and this here. So we've got wires crossed here, but no problem. So, right, notice that we have 25% true, 75% false, and here the other way around. Well, that's for the good reason that P or Q is true in 3 of the 4 cases. Now, let's play and let's enter, say, a value. We'll say, okay, we've been told P is Q. P is Q? No, P is true. P is P, no, P is Q. So suppose that P is true. Well, P and Q might or might not be true. But P or Q right off the bat is true, right? And this is yet to be determined according to what we say over here. And indeed, suppose we say, well, that in fact is false, and we'll say false. Notice this hasn't budged because it doesn't care about the value of Q, but this does. And now it says, okay, now we know for sure P and Q is false. Very well then, let's withdraw all this. Let's work the other way around. All right, suppose I find out that P or Q is true. Very well then. Then either P or Q might be true or false, and this is yet to be determined. If we find out so that, well, as it turns out, this is false right off the bat. This must be false. It won't matter. But notice that this came out true. Why? Because if that's false and P or Q is true, the only way that can be the case is if Q is false. And this is all done automatically. And that is just swell. I really like that. Let me take out all this. Now, if we had said P or Q turns out to be false, well, of course, that's interesting. If that's false, we know the only way in which P or Q can be false is if P is false and Q is false. But as soon as that's known, boom, P and Q is also false. Isn't that just swell? Right? Done automatically. Now, right, your piece of paper, if you do a truth table, it ain't going to do that. So that's what I mean by playing around with a truth table on Netica. Okay, well, have fun. Next time, I'm going to do a truth table on conditionals. And we'll look at modus ponens, modus tollens, and some associated fallacies. Okay. Until then, bye-bye.